You should be, if you mean it about practicing meditation and studying these teachings, you should constantly be looking at where you are at in this work. You know, where you are at in this work. What is it about it that's confusing? What is it about it that you don't understand? What is it about it that you're having difficulty with in terms of practicing? Those are the areas. That's why if you do go to a retreat and you have 2 times a day to meet with the teacher, and that's what those meetings are for, you know, for you to share with the teacher where you see yourself and ask the teacher to give you some guidance, you know, how to keep moving forward with your evolution to experiencing your true nature with consistency. That's the goal, with consistency. And recently I've been, you know, for those of you who, has anybody here ever looked at any of Brad Werner's YouTube videos? He is a good teacher. Some people may be put off by him because he's like a punk rocker and he's kind of weird, but he's an interesting guy. And he's actually a good Zen teacher. So I highly recommend that you check his YouTube channel out and listen to him. You'll see what I mean by how different he is, you know. Yeah. Well, he's in his 50s. He's young compared to us. But he's been around for a long time. His teacher, Nitsujimi Roshi, is a Zen master, and Brad Werner lived in Japan for a period of time, and that's where he met his teacher and studied with his teacher, and his teacher gave him the lineage. In other words, there's a process where the teacher says, you can teach, you know, I know you know this well enough to teach it. That's kind of part of the tradition. And so he got that lineage and everything, and he was a real lay monk when he was in Japan. But he's been back here for a number of years. He lives in California with his wife. And very interesting guy. Highly recommend his books and his YouTube videos. He's got books out on audio books and so forth. He's got about 8 books out. So he's different. He's different, but you can hear the same truth in what he speaks about. And that's what I think is important, because in these practices and teachings, what you want to aim for is the day when you see the truth for yourself. Not just one aspect of it, but you get the whole picture. You get the whole picture. You see the truth for yourself, and you're experiencing it consistently enough that you could speak about it and not get into trouble, like that. You know? So he's a good resource. And then his teacher, Nitsujimi Roshi, had a very interesting approach to teaching Zen. And in his writings and in his talks, what he continually spoke about is that the experience, the natural state that we speak of, is available when you balance the autonomic nervous system. This is what the Zen master taught. When you balance the autonomic nervous system, you will experience the natural state. The autonomic nervous system is the sympathetic and asympathetic nervous system, right? The sympathetic part of it is the part of it that is the fight or flight part, right? The asympathetic part of the nervous system is just the natural state of a relaxed physical body. That natural state of a relaxed physical body is interfered with when the asympathetic nervous system is activated, because it affects the heart rate, affects the breath, affects the muscle tension. It's a state of stress. It's a state of stress. Okay? And the personality is in a state of sympathetic nervous system all the time. Personality is a living sympathetic nervous system, meaning that the personality is consistently in a state of stress as it relates to surviving, as it relates to escaping from being affected by the things it's afraid of, as it relates to wanting to dominate and avoid being dominated. See, these are all things that go along with being a personality and a separate self, because if you're a separate self, it means it's you're one being, you're one physical body, and there's 8 billion other ones, right? And everybody's competing, right? Everybody's competing, and some of those 8 billion people are dangerous, right? They'll kill you, right? So you have to, as a personality that's in this separate self state, you have to pay attention so that you don't get yourself in a situation where you get killed. You have to pay attention so you don't get yourself in a situation where you get hurt or injured. And then on top of that, you have to be careful and pay attention so you don't get yourself in a situation as a personality where you get your feelings hurt. That's equal to getting killed for a personality. To be invalidated as a personality is equal to dying for a personality. Because your whole sense of well-being and aliveness is invested in the state that the personality is in. Invested in the physical state that it's in, invested in the emotional state that it's in, invested in how much money it has, invested in the mood it's in. These are all the characteristics that people pay attention to determine whether or not their life is working. And of course, since actual well-being isn't available for a personality, right? So the personality has to do, most people think it is. Most people think well-being is available as a personality because most people are personalities and they're pursuing well-being because they think it's available. It's very important to understand this, that it is not available. It cannot be available to a personality for a very simple reason. The personality isn't alive. It's not real. That's like expecting a computer program to be happy. That's not going to happen. And the personality is a computer program. The personality is a configuration of data that plays in the mind, in the voice in your head, constantly narrating what's going on. Constantly having you believe that that voice is you, right? And so you're constantly thinking about everything. You're thinking about your body, you're thinking about your life, you're thinking about your money, you're thinking about sex, you're thinking about politics, you're thinking about all of the elements that you have to juggle every day to try and be happy and satisfied and peaceful. And it's an impossible situation. I mean, anybody that's been around for a while, all you have to do is stop and take a good look and you can see that you've never ever really been happy. Not like a consistent experience of well-being, Your happiness has been something that came and went. It came and went. And it came and went in relationship to what? Circumstances. Came and went in relationship to circumstances. When the circumstances were good, I thought I was happy. When the circumstances was bad, I was unhappy. So your life is dependent on circumstances, dependent on a state of mind, because your state of mind is a circumstance. Your state of mind is a circumstance that's changing all the time, right? In relationship to what's happening, based on whether you like it or not, based on whether it feels good or not, based on whether it's pleasurable or painful, right? And so this is the prison we call the mind that you're trying to live your life in and be happy and satisfied. It's not possible. It's not possible, but almost all of humanity will keep trying, keep pursuing happiness, keep pursuing peace and well-being their entire lives, never actually experience it, and not even know that they never experienced it, because what they think is happiness is really gratification. Because if your happiness is a function of what you have or what you don't have, it's a function of circumstances, right? Then your happiness is an unstable reality. And what you call happiness is getting what you want, isn't it? If your happiness is a function of circumstances, right, then happiness is equal to getting what you want. If I get what I want, I'll be happy, right? And that's what human beings are doing. They get up every morning and try to get what they want every day. Try and get a little more of what I want. If I get enough of what I want, then I'll be happy, right? But if you believe that, all you have to do is pay attention to billionaires and see that they're more miserable than a lot of other people. And they have more money than anybody could ever spend. They could have anything they want in the world, right? And they're unhappy. They're unhappy. They're unhappy because they don't know any other game to play. And the game they're playing, they're losing at, but they don't want to lose face by admitting it. So they have to pretend they're happy, right? I don't want anybody to know that I gave up my entire life to get all this money and I'm miserable. The good news is real happiness is free. Not only is it free, but real happiness is always available. Well-being is always available because well-being is a state of being. A state of being. And a state of being means that if it's a state of being, it means that it's real because it is alive. Being is alive. Personality is not alive. A thought activity is not alive. Being is an experience of being what? Awareness itself. Awareness itself. And that experience of being awareness itself, if you can have enough consistency with it to actually recognize it, to be familiar with what it's like, what it feels like, then you're familiar with the fact that when you're in that state of being, there is a sense of well-being, there is a sense of satisfaction, there's a sense of being content. You don't feel like anything's missing when you're in that state. You're fulfilled. You're fulfilled. You're being what you are, and that's a fulfilling experience because you don't need anything, you don't want anything, you're not going anywhere. You're content, you're satisfied. Happiness is just an experience of being. It's not something you pursue. It's something that's always there as an experience of being. So this whole business of getting into a state of balance with the nervous system is important. But it's interesting because in order to get into the state of balance with the nervous system, you have to be in an awake state to do that. You have to have more awake than sleep. You have to be in an awake state to do that, because if you're in the state of the personality cannot behave in a way that is that causes well-being and happiness. The personality can't do it. Can't do it. If you look at anything, if you look at going to the gym, if you look at weight loss, if you look at exercise, if you look at healthy diet and all that stuff, right? The data is there. The data is there. Yeah? But the reason the data doesn't make a difference is because people are not able to act in their own best interest because they're living in a condition called the personality, and that condition is not awake, it's not alive, it doesn't have wisdom, and so it tries hard. The personality tries, it struggles, it copes, it puts up with life, tries hard. And all this trying hard wears the body out, and uses up all the energy, you know, so you're just tired. You're just tired of it all. You're just tired of it all. That's the reason that I think people commit suicide. You know, they tried, never worked, didn't work, even got worse, and then they're just tired, they don't want any more. They just want to leave, they just want to get out. I highly recommend suicide, but the suicide that I recommend is the real one. The suicide that people do is not the real suicide. Killing the body is not the answer. That's not going to solve anything. Yeah. The real suicide is kill the personality. That'll work. That'll work, because then you can still be here, but you'll be free from the tyranny of the personality. You'll still be here, and you can be here and enjoy your life because you'll be free from the limitations of the personality. You'll be free from the neurosis of the personality. And that freedom will allow you to behave consistently with the way things work, so your body will start to become more healthy. Your habits will change to be healthier habits. And it won't be hard to do because you won't be looking to see how I feel about it before I do it. You understand, it doesn't matter how you feel. You know, that's why, you know, if you talk to a lot of men, they say the best years of my life was when I was in Paris Island in the Marines. Best time in my life. You hear that, you know, or the best time of my life was when I was in the Army or the Marines or the Air Force or the Navy or whatever it is. Why? Because they didn't give a shit what you wanted or what you liked. They made you do what worked to be healthy. And you felt good. You felt good, right? But you can't do that on your own. You have to go to boot camp. You know, you have to have somebody, you know, make you do it. Even if you go to a meditation retreat, right? You go there and you give your will, or you give what you're going to do over to the person running the retreat. You follow the schedule. You don't do what you feel like doing. You do what the schedule says to do. And that'll drive your mind crazy, right? But that's the whole point of the retreat, is to drive your mind crazy, right? So it'll leave you alone. But people don't understand that. People are still in the form of the mind. So when they look at going to retreat, it's like, oh, what will happen? I might be uncomfortable. I might look bad. That's the epitome of neurosis. You know, the epitome of neurosis is to have the opportunity to do what works, to be healthy and satisfied and happy and fulfilled, right? And tell yourself you can't. And tell yourself you can't. That's too hard. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Better to just continue to allow myself to follow the voice in my head, to follow what I feel like doing and what I don't feel like doing. And I can make up shit about all that. People do, don't they? You know, they do what they feel like doing instead of what works, and then they explain it. They explain, oh, this is a better way. That's the epitome of insanity. And of course, because there are large numbers of people doing these things, right? You can just fall into the herd. You're just following what everybody else is doing, right? It's not my fault. I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. Isn't that the way it works? You just do what everybody else does? So, it would be an interesting exercise that I would dare you to do, is to take a piece of paper and write on that piece of paper, you know, what you would set up for yourself as goals in the direction of well-being. You know, whether they be physical goals, whether they be goals that have to do with stress reduction, right? Whether they be goals that have to do with meditation, whatever it is. You know, set the goals up, and then under each goal, do a little bit of research and find out what would you do to fulfill that goal, so that you have it all in front of you. You have the goals, you have the behaviors necessary to fulfill the goals, and then start to live with that. Start to live with it. Start to notice your inability to do the things on the piece of paper. And the reason you can't do the things on the piece of paper is because you're referencing how you feel about it when it comes time. Isn't it? You know, if you make up your mind to come to the gym every single day and work out so you can get in good shape physically, right? And then you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like it, so you don't go. That's going on more than the people that do go, right? Because people are stuck in a personality and stuck in a limited way of being, and are unwilling to pay attention to the cost. That's why that piece of paper would be valuable, because you would have to keep looking at what you're not doing and realizing the reason you're not doing it is because you didn't feel like doing it. And so how you feel is running your life. How you feel is running your life. I recommend breathing exercises. It's interesting, you know, I was listening to a doctor talk about blood pressure. Blood pressure is a big problem for people, right? Hypertension. And he was saying, you know, you could do a breath exercise for 5 minutes of deep breathing, and your blood pressure will go down 10 to 15 points. Just by doing 5 minutes of deep breathing. What is that telling you? What is it telling you? It's telling you that the way you're breathing is unhealthy. That's why your blood pressure is going down 10 points when you do deep breathing for 5 minutes. Right? So that's another area that we're asleep at the wheel at, right? That we don't, most human beings are holding their breath more than they're breathing. They're breathing very shallow, right? You know, very shallow. You know what that's consistent with? Fear. Fear. And most human beings are in fear all the time, but they don't notice it because anything that's constant goes unnoticed. They're in fear all the time. Most human beings are in fear and anger all the time, right? But it's below the level of awareness, right? If you want to test to see if that's true, when you leave here and you're on the highway, start paying attention. Your anger is waiting to get triggered. All it has to do is find the right circumstance, right? And then you can, oh, I'm angry. No, you've been angry. Or fear is the same thing. It doesn't take much to scare you because you're already afraid. So these are the things that we want to wake up about. You know, we want to wake up and realize if this body is in a contracted state all the time because of the fear and anger, right? And because of the trauma of past experiences where I got hurt and so forth, and it keeps replaying in the system, right? If that's the case, then your primary goal in life for well-being should be to practice relaxation in every way you can. Practice relaxation. Take 5 minutes out of every day and do deep breath work. And then notice after you do that, that you feel more relaxed, you feel different. Just allow yourself to imagine what would your life be like if as you went through life, regardless of the circumstances and the situations that occurred, right, you were able to stay in a state of being relaxed and calm the whole time. Relaxed and calm the whole time. That's what we're practicing. That's what we're practicing. So you should practice it in relationship to what it feels like in your body. You should practice it in relationship to what it feels like in your mind, what it feels like in your emotional life. So you can start to pay attention, right, and start to practice doing the things that will bring you into an easier way of living, a higher quality of life. A more receptive and open way of living. You know, where you are, when you're relaxed and you're calm, you can see more. You ever notice when you're angry, you can, your perception closes down, you know? If you're angry with somebody, all you can see when you look at them is what you're angry about. You can't see anything else. Right? When you're in a relaxed state, you're receptive and you're open and you can see more. You can see more possibilities. So you can do more of what works because you can see more possibilities of doing more of what works. And it starts to become an interesting way of living, you know, where you're very interested in mastery. You're interested in mastery, right? You're interested in mastering being human, mastering having this body, mastering your emotional states, mastering your level of excitation or stress, mastering it. And now we have a lot of devices to use to help in that process. You know, if you're wearing a smartwatch, and you can wear a smart ring now that's monitoring your body and giving you immediate feedback about how your pulse rate has been all day long, you know, when it spikes, you know. Give you immediate feedback about how deep you're sleeping at night and how much of your night you're not getting the rest you need to recover for the next day. There's all kinds of data now available, right? So you can look at that information and you have something to work with. And so you can look at that information and you can start asking yourself, okay, what could I do differently that would have that information reflect what I want it to reflect back to me, which would be health and well-being. I want that to be reflected back to me. So what could I do with that information? And then if you start doing those things with that information and you start practicing meditation, you start doing exercise and paying attention to what you eat and everything, and you're monitoring all this stuff and you're seeing all these things going in the right direction, then you're the source of your well-being. You're the source of your well-being instead of the commercials you watch. Instead of the McDonald's that you pass, you know. You become the source of your well-being, and it becomes something that you enjoy. It becomes something that you experience enjoying because you know you're living in a masterful way. You're not just doing what's easy. You're not just doing what you feel like doing. You're interested in mastery. You want to be a master. And part of being a master is to do what works, is to be healthy and in a state of well-being. Part of being a master is to be as awake as possible so you can see things as they really are, right? And behave in a way that is masterful, behave in a way that actually produces the results that you intend, right? If the result that you intend with the people around you that you love is you want them to be happy and to know that you love them and to experience a state of well-being, right? Then that's what you start paying attention to. Instead of getting your needs met, you start paying attention to what does this other person need to start to experience being happy and have a quality of their life. That may begin with your being the space for their life to happen in. That's an interesting possibility. You'd be the space for them to experience their life. How do you do that? By allowing them to know that they can't do anything wrong with you. That space is a space of acceptance. It's a space of unconditional love. And when they experience that, they have the space to pay attention to their own well-being. When you create a space of well-being in which the people around you can experience themselves that way, right, then they're motivated to want to get to source. They're motivated to want to be the source of that well-being. So there is a lot here to take under consideration in terms of what's possible. And the more you see about what's possible, the harder it is to keep doing the stupid shit. That's all you have to do, is just expose yourself to seeing the truth. Expose yourself to seeing the possibility for workability. If you're paying attention to that, if you're looking at it, if you're looking at that piece of paper that has on there what works, right, it gets harder and harder for you to not start to live consistent with it. That's why the teachings are so important, because if you study the teachings are talking about what an alive life looks like and how it works and why it's so fulfilling. And so the more you study the teachings, the more interested you are in having that possibility be realized.